G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. With the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who will bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and today I am joined by the commissioner of the very famous or infamous Shiva competition. Welcome to the show, Damon Adams. How are you?
I'm happy with infamous. That's totally fine.
I felt it was more infamous until this year, and then it was kind of like everyone knows about the Shiva now. Everyone's kind of on top of it. It's a big deal now that you've taken over.
Hey, mate, busiest commissioner in fantasy football. It's interesting because we obviously hit these bye rounds, and I'm not sure what the slate of competition is like across your keeper leagues, but we don't play them.
Yeah.
Fantasy football in many respects, particularly in yearly, takes such a pause around this time of year. I feel like in keeper leagues, it's a good time to get ahead because people do get sleepy and you can hit up waivers when people are a little bit unawares. But it's a busy time in Shiva because we change our content approach. We stop talking about fantasy football and start talking about fantasy music. Because this week, in fact, we're recording it tomorrow night. The 2024 Shiva Song Contest is on, and Heff, you are involved.
Yeah, I am. Sorry, I was halfway through a sip of my beer when you stopped there.
Frothies, cheers, mate.
Yes.
Frothies on a Monday.
We are having, we're having beers on a Monday. So, yes, I am involved. I'm very excited for it. I have put out a little song about a particular player. I don't know how much we should give away on this podcast and how much we should, push people over to the Shiva Blast each week to have a listen. I don't want to give away too much on this one, but yes, I have entered a song. It's quite an emotional song for me. It's about a player that I've loved and owned for a long time that might be somewhat finished.
You're calling it. You're ready to say goodbye.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I wrote this song in around round 3.
Yep.
And since then, they've kind of redeemed themselves.
So the song Travis spoke?
No.
He's been playing all right.
So the song, I'm not going to give it away, but the song might not make too much sense anymore. That's the only issue.
It's dated already.
Yeah, like
That's a good sign.
I'm hoping that it still does. And to be honest, if you just imagine that he didn't return and come good, it'll be a funny song. So
for those of you who just have no idea what we're talking about, so the Shiva Song Contest, this is its 7th iteration over the life of our competition. And what we encourage coaches to do is to prepare a song, could be spoken word, could be a chant, could be a team song, whatever, about something so loosely fantasy related. Now, it can have to do with players that you have an emotional connection to, Heff. It can be calling out other coaches in Shiva. And everyone throws their hat in the ring. We put them over a couple of podcasts. We run heats, finals, and then the winner wins an imaginary trophy, entry into Shiva the following year, and we use it as an opportunity as well to fundraise. This year, of course, we've got the King's birthday game coming up this week. We are chucking our support behind Freeze M&D. There's already a few hundred in the kitty. So even if you haven't done Shiva before, it's a great thing over the journey. That's kind of the feeling that you'll get coming across. Check out the Shiva Blast this week. I'll chuck you links and things like that, and should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Should be a lot of fun.
It's I've been involved in all Doss's work before. I've done a lot of singing on Doss stuff. Generally, I do all the singing that Doss couldn't do.
Yeah.
On his songs, but it kind of felt like I was more involved than I really was. Doss was really the genius behind all the songs type thing that have gone out. So Fiorini was on his own, obviously. The only reason I was really in the Paddy Dow songs was because I could do those 4-part vocal harmonies that Dossy couldn't do. And then the higher parts in the Rasputin Lipinski one as well. So
mate, the higher register is not something that a lot of fantasy footy coaches have, I find.
Well, you should wait to hear mine. There's a few high notes that I'm pretty proud of that actually hit, to be honest. But what I'm trying to get to is it's my first crack at having my own kind of take it a parody song as well. So I haven't put out any of my own stuff yet. It's usually just helping Doss's work and stuff like that. So interested to see how people receive it.
Have you run it past Doss?
No. Yes, I have actually. Doss has seen it. Yes.
And stamp of approval?
Oh, he just said I don't know the song. So that was about it.
give me something, Doss.
Yeah, no, I think he thought it was funny. I think Kay's enjoyed it. Geordie's enjoyed it. But yeah, I talk about you talk about writing a parody song as if it's as hard as writing a song. You being a musician yourself, it's it's putting melody to harmony and stuff like that is a different beast to putting words to a song, trying to make, joke lyrics. It's like, I don't know, it's not harder, definitely not harder, but it's not easy at the same time as well to try to make it funny and witty and all that sort of stuff too. So put yourself out there. Go on. What I'm trying to say, just go and have a listen to it and see what you think.
My own problem comes from ambition versus reality. And you talk about having an upper register. I just hit this mark and can't get any further.
I have heard your Jake Waterman song on the Shiva Blast.
Exactly. So a couple of weeks ago on the Shiva Blast, I created a song because last time I sat here in this chair, Heff, you created a TikTok highlight of me just saying, Jake Waterman will not do it again. And that was about week 3 of a 6-week run. So he did have a lot left in him.
Yep.
So I sang a song to just turn around to Jake Waterman to say, I'm sorry, mate. So I was recording my song yesterday, and my wife, who's a speech pathologist or is studying to be, she texts me from the other side of the house and she's like, stop straining your voice. You got to breathe a bit more.
Yeah.
I was like, no criticisms. I'm just going to put my heart into this.
I know what I'm doing here. Fair enough. All right, cool. So anyway, Shiva Blast this week because there's 2 heats. Is that right?
2 heats. Well, we're going to release the 2 podcasts day after day.
Yeah.
And then the finals next week. So listen, if you've never been around Shiva, if you've never heard the podcast, this is a great week to just dip your toe in just for the fantasy community and get around a great cause. And listen, if it does thereby interest you in Shiva, you can get onto our Facebook page, DT Shiva. We'll be looking to recruit more coaches for next year. It's 777 now, 779 coaches at the moment.
777 would have been too perfect.
I had to boot one guy to drop this entire team. So one coach down on the start of the year, but we will begin our recruitment again soon.
Now, as we're recording, we're watching the Matildas, who have just scored. So excuse us if we do seem a bit distracted.
This is looser than we've ever been, mate.
It very is. But anyway, we probably should spin the game day squad wheel before we get into the show. So again, if you haven't listened to the pod before, you probably have by now. This is usually the time people drop off, not start listening. But there's a link in the description. You enter it if you want to win yourself a game day squad pack. We mentioned last week that game day squads just started 2 new competitions, and you can add multiple teams in multiple competitions at once, which is awesome as well. So these packs are going to come in real handy because you're going to need more cards and more players. So we'll spin the wheel right now and see who wins the pack this week. And the lucky winner is...
Oh, here we go.
The Benny Fisheries. Well done to the Benny Fisheries. Now, the deal is get in contact with me on the socials. I've had such a range of people get in contact with me, sometimes Instagram message, sometimes X, sometimes on the Discord server, so many different places. Doesn't matter where you get in contact, a few emails. Doesn't matter where you get in contact. Just send me through your email and your name, and I will just double check and make sure it's you, and then I'll send you out the pack. So I love taking the admin off myself and giving it to the listeners. It's great.
Good.
All right, before we get into the round 12 review, and it is going to be a bit of probably a shorter review, just given there was 2 less games than usual.
Was it 3 less games? No, we had 7. You're right.
Yeah, and then there's 1 less this week. But so 2 less than usual. But we did have a mid-season draft last week that we need to chat about.
Can I just give you a pat on the back?
Yeah.
I looked at these guys and I thought, I know nothing. I know nothing about these guys at all. Who is going to have a little bit of something? My boy Heff. I went to the Keeper League podcast website.
Yeah.
You had the top 5 there. You put out the TikTok, giving a little bit of love to a couple of guys.
Yeah.
Man, the saviour.
Well, I try to be. I pretend I know more than I do. At the end of the day, I'm not watching these players play. I'm reading articles. I'm scraping bits of data from hard work that other people have done. You know what I mean? To make an assessment on these players. So really, at the end of the day, all I've got to go by is some fantasy numbers. But it's what I do.
What's your take on the way that AFL Fantasy handled the drop of these guys on the platform? I'm not sure if you're across this.
No, I'm not at all.
In a couple of keeper leagues that I was in last week, we realised that it must have been mid-Thursday.
Yeah.
They just were randomly on there. They weren't restricted free agents.
Yeah, okay, no, I don't like
that. They were
that.
just instantly available. But oddly as well, you put Ned Long at the top of your top 5.
Yeah.
And he wasn't part of that initial drop. They didn't all drop at the same time.
Oh, weird. Yeah, okay.
They only got like half of them out there.
Yeah.
And so in some leagues that I'm in that are super deep, of course, coaches, they're rabid for any type of talent. So, you know, people that are just there at that time go grab them, but then people have held restricted free agent priority.
Yeah.
Hoping for those mid-season people to come through, and they miss it. It was a mess last week.
I shouldn't talk too much about the platform and the app. I may have mentioned something on the Hat Chat podcast and received an email.
I see.
No, it was I'm playing that up. It was actually just like, hey, we'd love to know the issues so we can fix it in the future.
Yeah,
so like it was great. Yeah.
I will say
it was great. It was good by Genius that they actually reached out and had a chat, and we figured things out and gave some feedback for the future and stuff like that. It was actually good that happened. So yeah.
Listen, and you know, credit to that team. They have been super responsive to feedback, and they have helped out, you know, DT Shiva a lot as well. And the implementation from that point of view has been stellar. Like their support team are great. Some things have left a little bit to be desired for fantasy coaches throughout the year. Yeah,
I think it's just the not understanding the implications on the draft platform. Yeah. Like obviously you drop those players into the AFL Fantasy platform, all the players are pulled from the same database, all that sort of stuff. So really they just put them in the classic game, and then it turns into a free-for-all for what happens in the draft game, you know what I mean? Without much thought. Yeah, it's an afterthought what happens there. You know, it's more like, the players are in now, and then there's never any thought like, oh, what happens in the draft game? What implications does it have? So again, like it's probably not their priority, and I don't know how much they can actually do. Like I don't think that the team are master coders and they can go rewrite the code and stuff like that. I think
some guys just going click.
I think the code is even like handled by an international company that doesn't really give them much access to it as well. Like, but so that's my thought. I don't know if that's the truth or I know that's just my thinking behind it. It probably is that way, just given with stuff I've done with other companies and things like that. So it could be something like that where they don't really have much control anyway. There's not much they can do about it.
It's easy
in the first place.
Yeah, it's easy to forget the human element of it when there are some hardworking people behind the scenes. But at the same time, you know, particularly from a keeper's perspective, because this is where it probably has the biggest implications. You've got to acknowledge the annoyance for those coaches last week. It was an interesting one.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we've talked about 12 minutes about anything else, but we still probably should mention some mid-season draftees though. So the big ones, I guess, that were there were Ned Long. So he got drafted to Collingwood. I love this pick just because it was later on in the draft. I think it was pick 19 to go through, but been in the Collingwood VFL system, averaging big numbers in the VFL, but also going to a side that's really lacking some midfield depth at the moment. So
just depth in general.
Yeah, exactly. So just a lot of injuries going on and stuff like that. So Ned Long's obviously the big one. Geordie Payne was the first pick, and he's averaging 106.4 in the talent league. You know, the few of the players that have come out of the talent league in previous years have been okay, I guess. Actually, I'm just trying to think. Most of the VFL ones are actually pretty good, but like, you know, Jai Cully was out of the talent league and that sort of stuff as well. So those guys probably do take a little bit longer to develop and get there. It's not like a Jai Newcomb who was out of the VFL and stuff like that. But the other ones there, like Brent Teakle's got awesome waffle numbers, but he goes to North Melbourne where he's a ruck, I guess.
Well, it's only if Jerry goes down.
But the thing is, like at the end of his time at Port Adelaide, he was kind of being groomed into like a centre-half back because we were lacking key defenders as well, and North Melbourne are lacking key defenders too. So again, probably not the most fruitful fantasy role if he goes there though. And the other one, the last one I really like is that Saad El Hawali, just a lightning, like a halfback flanker type thing. Can play on the wing as well. Numbers look good. I just worry that like he might be actually used on a halfback flank and Nick Martin goes back to a wing or something like that. Or I don't know. Nick Hines probably sweating with his inclusion. That's for sure.
Nick Hines. That's
why he's playing so well.
Nick Hines has looked amazing the last 3 weeks. He's turned into a proper footballer.
That's why he's playing so well, because he's got guys like him breathing down the neck. He's like, I got to keep my spot in this side. So
hey, that's it. Well, you know, pressure breeds good football.
That's it. All right, let's actually get into the round review. The wonderful, wonderful match that was Port Adelaide versus Carlton. Did you head there on Thursday night?
I had tickets to it. We've got a membership. I just had a terrible feeling, and I had reasons, like, you know, usually go with my son. It's a school day Friday.
I had reasons not to go.
I didn't go, and turned out to be a great call. I turned it off mid fourth quarter after Carlton kicked those 4 goals in like 3 minutes. Cripper kicked 2, and that was it for me.
As a Port supporter, could you just feel it coming? Yeah, like it's just like you knew this was like you just knew it was going to happen.
People were like, no, you're at home. No, Carlton are going to win this match.
It was the most flat atmosphere as well, because I feel like the whole crowd just knew like we are not a chance here. It's something like the same thing always happens. Like we get close, near enough, kind of good enough type thing. the other opposition flicks the switch. Happened in the Melbourne game, we were up by heaps at 3/4 time.
Yeah.
Well, up by a bit at 3/4 time, and then we ended up losing by 2
we were down
points.
by
It was
7, so we were within an arm's length, and we just got. As soon as they decided to flip the switch, we were gone.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I don't know. Something's got to change at Port, but no one's listening to me and I'm wrong all the time. So, yeah. Anyway, Mitch Georgiades is the first one to talk about. I reckon that's a tip of the cap. But in a side that ended up getting belted at the end of the game, I guess, like to kick 4 goals, it was a pretty decent effort. My thinking we're going to get stuck too much on Port here, being Port supporters. But Port are a team that like press so high, like all of their players are in the forward 50 of the ground, right? And I guess like the issue with it is like they expose their defenders so much on the rebound. So that was a big issue on Thursday night was, under kind of underrated or probably adequately rated players like Sava and Zerk Thatcher. When they get one-on-one with players like Kerno and Mackay and stuff like that, they can't match it. But like, look at Collingwood, who kind of do the opposite. They push everyone backwards and then slingshot forward. You know what I mean? Like, why are we playing this game plan?
When was the last time we played games in a row where we allowed our forwards passage and lead to the football?
Exactly.
And encourage them to do so.
And this is my point with players like Georgiades. Like, we're so... just everyone in the forward half, bombing on head, no space to lead, like just bombing in as many times as we possibly can.
Well, when he got drafted, it was like, no, he's this jumping, marking forward, and all we do is dump it long.
Yeah.
And so what's he gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, we do it down the. I mean, again, Port Adelaide, but we do it down the boundary and we dump it long to short players against talls. I don't know.
The thing
Port's
is,
game
like,
plan is broken.
Yeah, 100%. And this is why like we rave about not wanting the coach. Everyone comes back to like, 8-4, be happy, But it's just like we keep seeing the same shit that never gets over the top of top 4 sides. My point in all of this is players like Georgiades, players like Todd Marshall might be good one day in an effective game plan. Like, given they're the athletic type forwards, they can run out, take a mark, stuff like that. It's just they cop so much heat because they're not playing in a system that suits them at all.
Well, we've seen Todd Marshall in the last 10 weeks. He's had some putrid scores, but he's scored 100 a couple of times when he's been able to get up 60 to 80 out and take some marks.
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
And when he's playing against North Melbourne, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mitch Georgiades tip of the cap because it's not going to work under the current system.
Yeah.
Ivan Soldo had 95 points. Do you think that settles the Soldo suite debate? Is it put to bed now?
I'm not convinced it is. I think, Soldo only found his way out because of an untimely injury. Sweet looked okay, but Visentini isn't going to hold anyone out of the side. I'm not sure. Like, Soldo at the start of the year was obviously solo rucking and the points weren't coming. So I'm not sure whether this is like an ongoing fantasy choice that people should be making.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Like, it's kind of the reason why I avoided drafting either of them because if you wanted one, you had to have the other, and it's just too hard to actually bother with. But yeah, I still think there's a world where we do see Sweet back eventually as well. Like, it'll only take 1 or 2 bad games from Soldo, and we might see Sweet back as well. So I don't know. If you own one, you've got to own the other. You've got to handcuff them. So that's the probably point of that story there. One player that I'm not hating at the moment is Jackson Mead, purely because he's just such a hard worker. Do you think he scored 70 points in this game? Do you think he could be a player of the future? There's like talks of Ollie Wines being offered up for trade at the end of the year because we have got absolutely no draft capital with Tasmania coming in. Boak retiring, obviously he plays like a wing kind of role as well. Is there any world where you see Jackson Mead a half reasonable pickup?
I'm not surprised that he's playing well, but I'm just surprised that he's getting as much of it as he is, given how loaded, from an outsider's perspective, the Port midfield is with Rosie Butters, Horne-Francis, Drew, Wines. That's a fair mix, but he seems to be playing a really effective link-up role there. When it does spread a little bit wider, he is, really getting involved in that chain. So you're right, Boak will retire. You've got to think that, even though he is having a couple of pretty effective weeks fantasy-wise. Does Wines leave? I don't know. But either way, Mead has become an effective late midfielder. If you've got an M7, M8 on your field and, it's tough with all the injuries that are out there, you're playing him.
Yeah, exactly. So if he's putting up 70s most weeks, like my M7 when I'm not all injured is someone like Tom Mitchell or Xavier Dersma or Sam Durham type thing.
He's capable of doing around that mix.
Yeah, he's capable of doing similar type things. On the Carlton side of things, everyone who performed well was 2G, 4P effectively. But the only one I want to highlight is Elijah Hollins, had 75 points. He's getting a lot of centre bounce tendencies in the last few weeks.
Cherubim out?
That's probably the thing that's got to be it. But, just interesting that he's the next guy in with kind of what they've got and what they could use. I guess being a new recruit to the club, they must see him as a midfielder, long term eventually. So I guess it's just good signs given that he's, fourth, fifth year in the system?
He had that early fantasy clout, right?
Yeah, so he might be a player.
Good junior numbers.
Yeah, and he's listed as a forward at the moment too, which is handy for owners. Onto the Collingwood versus Western Bulldogs. I didn't see a second of this game because I was at the Matildas. Did you go Friday night?
I didn't go to the Matildas. It seemed like most of my social media feed was there, but I gave the Darla night at home.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So just it's buy rounds. I'm not as focused on it. Let's put something on the TV.
Yeah, fair enough. Still Sidebottom's the first player I want to mention. 89 points. I think that switch to halfback has been good for him. He hasn't been consistent, but we're actually seeing games where he's capable of putting up, 80s and 90 type scores.
Yeah, but when he's looked bad, he's looked bad.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you're just going to get some of that into the mix. I mean, what is particularly interesting about Collingwood at the moment is so much has been said about just how heavily strapped they are with injuries. And so he's almost being forced to play a more effective fantasy role while people are out of the side. Even today, I was reading that Jamie Elliott's foot is like a real terrible vascular issue, and one of the guys in one of my fantasy chats was riffing that his might be career over. Now,
jeez.
Again, that is hearsay from a guy that's in a chat that I'm with, but
he probably doesn't own him and just trying to scare the guy who does own him.
Potentially, but you also mentioned Lachie Schultz here, and it's making some of these guys that have had pretty ordinary starts to the year maybe be a tad more effective.
They have stepped up in the ranks a little bit there. I just feel like he's not someone I feel comfortable fielding, but given that they're Collingwood, I haven't checked the fixture, but I assume there's a few Friday night games in the mix. He might be one of those kind of loophole options, or at least early on in the weekend type thing. More so just mentioning that he's better on the halfback flank than he is on the wing. He's going to have more chances there. Lachie Schultz, we just mentioned him, but tip of the cap, 3 goals. Most people picked him to go backwards this season, which was pretty correct, I think. I think it's just more so interesting that we haven't seen like the other smaller forwards really step up though. Like Bobby Hill's was goalless for a few weeks and stuff like that.
Ash Johnson hasn't been seen much.
Yeah. And then, Elliott out of the side as well. You think like someone Schultz would pick up a bit more, but just hasn't really got there at all. But the other, probably the most interesting one, and I put him in the waiver wire podcast and a few social clips I made today, is Bo McCreary.
Yep.
Got 81 points, so not huge, but got some midfield times. I think it was 55% in the end. Had 14 tackles going in there, which is what he does. You know what I mean?
Well, it's touted in the preseason to be spending a little bit more time here.
Correct, yeah. So he might be just someone to look at. Again, we haven't seen a high ceiling now, but like you stick that guy in the midfield, he's going to rack up big tackle numbers. So he and listed as a forward, he could be good for an 80 for a few weeks if he's staying in there. So just another one to think about on your waiver wires.
And if Collingwood do have those early games, perfect lube option, right?
Yep. And Harvey Gallagher, my boy, 82 points. He had 24 CVA, so he's actually the third banana behind Treloar and Bont. But we just got to really remember that Richards and Libba are out of the side at the moment.
And both should be back.
Yeah, I really just wanted to just mention that he's got some potential because they're using him in the midfield in this way. But also, just don't forget where you heard his name first.
Yeah.
Because if there's one guy championing this guy for the last 2 years, it's just the moment he was drafted.
I feel like this studio in here, this room, just deserves a my boy wall.
Yeah, it probably does,
just a shrine to all the boys we've had along the way.
We used to have a lot of the photos, our boys, I think, but a few of them got too good for the podcast, so ripped them down and we got more sponsors, so we had to kind of put them up as well. But anyway, Harvey Gallagher, remember where you heard the name. Hawthorn versus Adelaide. Oh, so sad to see the Crows get beaten by Hawthorn.
You're letting it get through today, mate. It's that beer.
Must be.
I've sucked you into it.
Must be. Jack Ginnivan. I always say his name wrong. It's Ginnivan, yeah?
I think so.
Yeah, not Ginnivan. Guinea. 104 points. Now, he's on the cusp of too good for the podcast now.
Yeah, that surprises me.
Yeah, just to I guess the qualifier is 3 80+ scores in a row.
Yep.
That's the time everyone jumps on the waiver wire, they start to pick him up type thing. So that's kind of the benchmark for it. But he's still only averaging around that 70 mark. But 70 for an F5, you'd take that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. This year, 70 for an F3.
Yeah, exactly. My forward line, I picked him up in the draft thinking I'd have to play him more this year. My forward line is looking like from what it started as to what it is now, it's ridiculous. So like my keepers that I kept were Jai Caldwell was probably F1.
Yep.
Archie Perkins probably F2 behind that.
Yeah.
But then Joe Danaher would have been like F3 at the start of the season.
Yep.
Then I've ended up with Jack McRae in my side as well, like so by
good.
trading. But I only traded him in 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of got him pretty cheap. So he's like my F4.
He didn't even get to enjoy his good score this week.
Yeah, exactly, because of the buys. At least I didn't get a shit one. Oh, wait, no, I did get a shit one last week, didn't I? But yeah, so like just, it's just like someone like him I thought I'd be playing a lot more. There's another forward in there that's actually in that kind of probably F4, F5 caliber as well, but his name's escaping me at the moment. Who it is.
Some of the Essendon ones is, so ironic given they're actually playing well and just not giving you the feedback.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just thought I'd get more of him. But if he's available on your waiver wire, he's probably someone to consider because he'll get you 70 most weeks. Another one of my boys, Massimo D'Ambrosio.
He had the dip, like he had that early season push. Everyone got around him from a fantasy classic sense.
Well, this is the thing. Like I put up a thing on TikTok saying, it's probably time to jump off around that dip. You know, like he's probably not gonna do much. And then some guy commented like, "Oh, he's been injured for the last 3 weeks, boys. Like, do a bit of research," type thing. And I was like, well, he played the last 3 weeks. Like, he was in the side. He got subbed out twice. But like, there's no way a young team plays Massimo if he's injured. They just rest him if he is, right? So there's no way. But then maybe I'm thinking like maybe this guy was onto something. Like he did know something the rest of us didn't know as well. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you think about the effect that the niggles can have on players.
Yeah.
Often we put it in the context of the stars of the game and why they might be underperforming.
Yeah.
But it works for that concept works for every single player that's out there.
There was periods where Massimo though, like he was on the bench for like the whole last quarter, and you could see him trying to get back on as well. Like he'd walk up and like do extra things, like walk to the gate, like is it me going on now type thing, like no, and then walk back to the bench, like obviously being held off. I think one of them was they ran out of subs. I think that was against Collingwood, so ran out of interchange. Sorry, and I think another one they were very low, so they didn't want to use them up unnecessarily. So he got stuck on the bench a few times in those ones, but. He's had the 3 80-plus scores in a row. That's too good for the podcast.
Oh, well, see you later, mate. One more Hawks player before we move on. I just want to mention is Ned Reeves.
Yep.
Now, we've had the ascension of Meek over the last month and a half, last 6 weeks, to the point where he is just actually a top-flight ruckman. Too good for the podcast. He takes a week off, and Ned Reeves is in.
Yeah.
And you've got to give it to Ned Reeves because he played a very good game. He certainly beat O'Brien in my books.
Yeah.
He got hit, like he copped a right ankle knock. And he looked so determined not to let it affect him.
Yeah.
And because you could see in his head, no, this is my chance to, if I go off now and Meek's back, I lose my spot.
Yeah.
I've got to put it out here.
Yeah.
Got a 77.
Yeah.
It's a great ruck handcuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Unexpectedly.
The thing with Reeves is you're guaranteed, because he's so bloody tall, you're guaranteed a stack of hit-outs, as well. But I think it is just good to have some competition, and it's good to have two good handcuffs. Like a great one is McInerney and Fort at Brisbane Lions, because like those guys both at least go 80 plus. Like if they're playing number one, either of them usually goes 80 plus. What's great about Ford is because I've got him as I've got McInerney on my bench, and then I've got Ford as a handcuff to him, just in case like things went really wrong last year where I had 6 rucks on my list and didn't have one playing in finals. So like I've got a few there type thing. But yeah, like when McInerney copped a concussion, I think earlier in the year, it was just so good to put him on as a forward because it was just a 1 week 90 plus score, you know? But anyways, like those competing rucks, if there's 2 semi-decent ones, it can be pretty fruitful for fantasy teams.
Just a little bit of love to Reeves.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I was a Ned Reeves truther earlier on. Well, more so, I just thought I didn't think he was going to be a fantasy star. I just thought he was going to be like the number 1 ruck because he was better in the ruck, essentially. Yeah. But no, Meek has come along. I still think Meek is the number 1 ruck as it stands.
Oh, but mate, this season, absolutely.
Didn't harm himself too much in this game, though. On to the Crows. Lockie Scholl has had back-to-back hundreds, 110 points on the weekend. He's always been a fantasy type, even for a wingman. Yep. I think earlier on he started on a halfback flank earlier on in his career, like
Where
first
did he play
season.
for the Blues?
Scholl went to play for the Blues? I did not know that.
I'm pretty sure he came from the Blues.
Yeah, okay.
I could be wrong. I could be throwing out facts that are clearly incorrect there.
You said it with conviction, though. I had to believe you.
I'm going to check his Wikipedia page. You keep talking.
I guess the question for him, like, can we trust him enough to be best 22? Because I think he only came into the side in that North Melbourne game where he was the sub in that game. And then, but the thing is with the Crows, I just don't know who would replace him at the same time.
He's the son of former Carlton player Brett Scholl.
Okay. That makes way more sense.
It was recruited by the Crows. That's a completely wrong piece of information.
My brain does shit like that all the time, though. So, like, you just hear a bit of information and you're convinced it's true.
Yeah.
And, like, you're usually right, like, as well, and that's why you, like, always back yourself in.
Mandela effect,
There's a few that get through. But, yeah, what do you think? Is Scholl best 22 now? And
at least in the short term, absolutely he is.
Yeah.
There's not many effective Crows actually playing at the moment. I wanted to bring up the fact that it was announced by the Crows today that Matty Crouch has done an AC injury and he's out for the year.
Yep.
Which, when you consider from a fantasy perspective, Matty Crouch is one of the top 10 averaging mids of the year.
Yep.
I mean, opportunity beckons. You've got Dawson, who is rumoured to be carrying something.
Yeah, the foot.
At the moment. You've got Rankin, who's currently out, who will return in a couple of weeks. I mean, opportunity beckons. I mean, Scholl is basically ironed on at the moment, but Sam Berry, who started as a sub a couple of times, and even Harry Schoenberg, who came back from that Achilles injury a couple of rounds ago, he hasn't done anything from a fantasy perspective yet.
Yeah. The other one that was, I guess, interesting in that kind of mix is Max Michaelini got, I think, a bunch. I think it was like 7. I can't remember the exact number, but got CBAs towards the end of the game as well.
I don't know why you do that. Leave him down back.
It's interesting because, like, he is a good user of the football.
Yeah.
And if they've got two midfielders battling, they chuck one in there. It's like, do you think it's a long-term play, or do you think it's just like they needed someone to fill in a quarter and
if they want good users of the football in the middle, why is Rory Laird in the middle of the ground?
Well, he went to halfback as well.
Yeah, that's where he should be. I mean,
he kind of swapped with Michaelini, I guess. Now that I think about it, that's what happened. So, yeah. Interesting times at the Crows. A lot of questions to be answered.
A lot of questions. Luckily, we've got an absolute blockbuster of Crows v Richmond on Thursday night to really solve some of those issues.
Yay.
Hurrah!
I've got Jordan Dawson in my team. I can at least use as a loophole.
Yeah.
Or VC at the very least. Probably will have to loophole him with the injury, though, because he might score 60 again. The other one is Billy Dowling in that midfield mix as well. So
when does he... Is this it?
Yeah, another massive game in the Sandful this week. Like, it has to be. Otherwise, there's obviously issues with, like, tank, disposal efficiency, something.
Defensive
game.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's defensive pressure, that sort of stuff. Has to be something.
All the long-term keeper, coach investors are just gagging for this guy to play.
Oh, yeah, and he's 200K in Classic as well. So, like, everyone wants him to come in so they can use him as well.
Play Billy.
The next game of the round was West Coast versus St Kilda. Ruben Jinby has impressed me over the past few weeks. Yeah, 96 points, getting a lot more midfield time, and he's just such a big dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's really looking like that inside type. I guess the issue is, like, is he going to be one of those pure inside, like a Matt Rao type that doesn't really have the outside game to boost those fantasy numbers? He was used as a defender underage, but I'm not sure if it was more, an outside halfback flanker role or was more of a lockdown thing. I know that he switched to a midfield role halfway through his junior career, and it kind of went back to it at West Coast. But my way of looking at it, he's either going to be a inside midfielder or he's going to be like a Shannon Hearn type player. But I think he's going to be
Shannon Hearn was pretty good from a fantasy perspective as well.
So I think gut feel he's too good to be in that defence though. He's going to be a midfielder long term. But yeah, I just don't know if he's going to have the ceiling. What are your thoughts?
Cheekily, you'd love just a little bit, at least 35% of defensive game in there, just so he keeps that positional eligibility.
Yeah,
he looks
like Elliot Yeo type thing.
He's got the attributes, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And that's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
West Coast are going to give him the opportunities as well. They have to invest time in Ruben. So I think he's blue chip stocks.
Yeah, no, I think so too. He's just got that quality as a underage performer as well, like in such a high end draft pick. And I think he's going to be a gun as well. So it's just good to see him put up a few signs here and there.
There's just not a lot of players currently on that list, Harley Reid aside, that you're confident are going to be the 200 to 250 game players for West Coast. And he looks like one of them.
That's not a knock on them either because they're so early into their rebuild as well.
Yeah,
so,
and they've still got a lot of those older players to continue to work through.
Yeah.
But surely he is one that they put long-term investment into.
Yeah, I think so. Matt Flynn returned on the weekend, 89 points. He was a popular preseason option in the draft formats because he was supposedly the number one ruck from
Pec
the get-go.
injury that he had? That was long term.
Yeah, it was over a while. I don't know specifically what it was, but yeah, kept him out for a while.
I'm just throwing facts out there, mate. Like, one of them's going to hit.
Nah, sure. I don't think anyone's going to. No one's listening to this stage of year anyway. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
Happy bye round.
he's not a bad player around the ground. Like, when he was at GWS, he got stuck forward sometimes because they played two rucks in tandem, him and Bruce. At the time, I think there might have been another guy there at the start stage. I can't remember who it was, but I always noted like he could always take a grab when he was stuck forward. He didn't really convert and do anything, but he always took one or two grabs where you were just like, oh, that was a pretty good mark for a big fella like him, big pack mark type thing. And like, so he's got signs that he could take marks around the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just be a decent player like that. And I don't know. I think the issue is like everyone's got a ruck. I think like in most leagues they've got a decent ruck already, and at the moment he's playing in tandem as well.
Yeah, Bailey Williams.
They both scored well on the weekend, but at the same time, Ryan Marsh was giving up a dickload of numbers to other ruckmans as well. So I think we just need to watch him for a few more weeks is what I'm trying to say.
It wasn't a pec injury. It was a detached tendon where the hamstring meets the knee. Listen,
It's close to the pec? No,
not
way
at
off.
all. When he was recruited from the Giants, we really thought that he was going to be a great fantasy option. So, I mean, if he can string the games together, if he can stay fit, could be a good long-term option.
Hunter Clark for the Saints is the only one I want to talk about there. God, yeah, this is a pretty gross game when you think about it. Not a lot to talk about anywhere. But 87 points, 11 CBAs. He had 4 weeks in the two. So, like, I kind of feel bad for not bringing him up on Waiver Wire podcast because I figured, like, if he's been playing for 4 weeks and just going on last season where I think he had a game where he turned up and then he was dropped the next week.
Yep.
Like, I just figured he wasn't. And Ross Lyon talks about these players that he just wishes he didn't have and wants to trade him type thing. I always just had in my mind he was one of them. So I was like, no way Hunter Clark's getting a game, especially with like Crouch coming back and stuff like that. Played a game, scored well. So I don't know. What do you think? Is there any kind of value here? If
I owned Hunter Clark anywhere and he strung 2 to 3 games together, I would sell him so hard.
Yeah.
Since the start of his career, he's played 15 games, 14 games, 16 games, 13 games, 8 games, 18 games miraculously last year, and that was his first this year.
Yeah.
He just does not have the durability to hang in the game for any length of time.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you find a buyer, even if you sold him as steak knives as part of a deal, get a couple of 80s out of him and get him out your team.
That's a fair point because, like, regardless of where he sits in the pecking order, like he's going to be injured at some stage, isn't he?
That's it. He has got the body of the Dion Prestias of the world, of the Jacob Hoppers of the world.
Yeah.
He just cannot keep it together.
My other train of thought was like he probably just offers something a bit different than Steele, Windhager, Dow, like those type of players. Seb Ross, even like to an extent, all pretty inside. He can be that kind of hybrid, like between the inside and outside type as well. So. Just if they want to persist with him, he could go okay. But I'm with you. If he puts up anything, resembling a score like that again, sell. Thank you to the following gold members. We are this is a member-supported podcast. So without members, like this show just doesn't exist anymore. So just every week, like to say thank you to the people who sign up to the gold tier and really get behind the show. So thank you to Spencer Davis, Sean Taylor, Michael Workman, Riley Black, Dane Smith, Why Not Grind, Jason Beck, Craig McKay, who's in my Dynasty League. So is Andrew Kenny, he's in there as well, so they must have signed up at the same time. Steve Canton, Dean Hastings, Peter Stone, Ashley Woods, Mike Hunt. Interesting name. What were their parents thinking?
Why not grind? That rolls off the tongue.
Also, and Chris Ryan. So thank you to those gold members. If you want to sign up and support the show, link in the description below. Just click the membership link there and sign up, and you'll keep this thing going and take satisfaction out of that. Anyways, let's continue on. So Geelong versus Richmond. I think we've got to preface every Richmond game with Richmond factor.
Yeah.
Like, there's an asterisk.
Mate, they looked a possibility to steal this one for some of this game.
Well, we're up until half-time, really. And then Geelong just came out saying, oh, shit, we're almost going to get beat by Richmond. Let's do something about this.
It's Richmond.
Time to switch on. And, just belted them. But, like, look at this. Like, Jack Bowes, 130 points.
Yep.
Duncan, 118. Tom Atkins, 111.
Dempsey,
104. Tanner Broon, 100. Like, that midfield has been so shaky this year in terms of like leaking points to opposition midfielders, and they didn't really leak anything in this game. It just shows like they were so on top, it just you can't really read into it too much. That's all. Jack Bowes is interesting though. Like 130 points. Like he's the sub 1 week, then he's their best midfielder the next. Like Geelong's rotation is so frustrating. Like that's why if you're like one of those coaches that own Tanner Bruin, who's always waiting for him to turn that corner, you just might never see it, you know?
Yeah, and you also got to think, you know, this is still the section of the year where Dangerfield's out.
Yeah.
So it's not going to get better than this for Bowes. But, I mean, 130-point performance, you know, 29 disposals, 8 tackles, kicked a goal as well.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's a good
Dine
guy,
out
actually.
when you can.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you didn't get the opportunity to because it's a bye.
Yeah, unless you play through. I'm in one league where we do play through, so yeah. But my team did get belted on the weekend because I had
Less said about it, the better.
I actually fielded a team. Like I had everyone on the bench was not playing, and everyone on the team was playing. But I also had to put up Petruccelli's score of 18, which wasn't great. And I had Jordan Dawson captain as well. So yeah, fair to say my week was pretty gross. The other thing though in that league, I'd traded Matt Crouch last Wednesday.
Traded him out.
for
Sensational.
a first rounder next year.
Wow, that coach hates life right now.
And it'll be like a top 4, top 5 first rounder as well.
Well,
so.
it's certainly not going to improve his chances this year. So
exactly. So, and I think it was like to contenders. Well, I don't know. He figured he could make the finals if he had a good run. I think.
So, have you had some communication with him since that news has come out today?
Well, this is the thing. Yes, we've all been getting into it in the group chat, but the thing is as well. I even said like in the group chat, just being the good guy, like. I run an AFL Fantasy podcast. I don't know if these guys actually spend that much time thinking about it, but I just said to them, like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure you want to make this trade? Like, this guy's 30, averages 0 meters gained, doesn't help the Crows win.
You know, from a pure
because he came to me with the offer. He's like,
but a business point of view, he was a top 10 averaging mid for the year.
True.
That's a first round worthy trade.
True. Anyway, got the first rounder and ran. So yeah. But let's continue on.
That grin can't get much wider, mate.
No, I'm pretty happy with it, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm just hoping there's a few decent mids in next year's draft. But I haven't really looked into the draft too much yet. But yeah, I'm hearing there's a few good ones. Let's get on to Melbourne versus Jack Graham. We skipped over there. Just thought it was just interesting. He had a big uptick in CBAs. Just one to watch as a forward with all the outs. But
he's another one that's been nursing a lot of injuries.
Yeah, I was going to say, just give him 2 weeks, he'll be injured.
If he can put a couple of games together, maybe.
Yeah. Melbourne versus Fremantle was also a game that was pretty hard to read and take anything out of because, like, Fremantle just possessed the ball so much and were just in control all day. And I just feel like what? First of all, what were Melbourne doing? Like, just man up on them. Like,
I have
just
no
stop them.
idea.
Like,
they had under 40 inside 50s for the game.
Yeah,
and yet all the Fremantle backs just dined out.
Yeah, it was just like, all right, you're not going to come to us. We'll just keep chipping between us. Yeah. And then you come at us and we'll just chip over the top of you. And then all of a sudden we get it to one of our forwards who's all kick bags.
From a coaching perspective, it was an abomination for Melbourne.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, like sometimes, like I know we've got Ken Hinkley and we can't really complain. Well, we can complain more, but like
at least Goodwin has a premiership to show for it.
And yeah, exactly, and it hasn't been around for 12 years as well. But anyway, it was just bad coaching all round. I'm just saying we can relate to bad coaching anyway. But yeah, like just a massive score there. The only interesting one for Melbourne was Jake Bowie, 84 points, halfback role, always looked like a scorer.
Yep.
What I found interesting about it was like Salem is a midfielder 1 week, halfback flanker the second. It seems like he just rotates like every second week. But it was interesting because he still scored well with Salem going pretty well back there as well. But then, that midfield mix changed. Tom Sparrow went in this week after not going in at all last week. And I've said this on the TikToks last week. Alex Neil-Bullen is the most consistent out of those fringe midfielders for him. He's the only one going there like 30% every week. He's not going 60 and 0 like the others.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
I just can't get a read because I don't know. Neil Bullen, I just don't read as a very effective footballer, and maybe that's just an average pundit point of view. But
yeah, I don't know. He offers in that grand final year, he offered enough on that wing for half forward and then pushing up to the wing, that sort of stuff as well. But
interestingly, from a winger perspective, Lockie Hunter is injured again, so. I don't know, some more opportunity to be had there.
Well, the interesting one, Taj Woden came on, and he got a run on the wing in that. So he might be one, or that might be one for the classic coaches if he gets a bit there. But they've still got Langdon. They've still got the draftee Caleb Windsor.
Yep.
Like, he could just be a good bump for Caleb Windsor as well, because he's been down a bit the last few weeks too.
For sure.
Kind of on this topic of wingers, Jago Mira has been playing a lot on the wing this year. 115, again, Melbourne factor, over possessing the ball. But he moved to that halfback flank a little bit as well in this game. So, yeah, just something to watch.
I thought it was washed.
Yeah.
I thought his career was completely done.
Like, look, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. He probably still is. But, yeah, just an interesting thing. Again, like, there's so many players. You've got Clark, you've got Ryan, you've got Aish, you've got Chapman. There's so many points to go around. Like, they're not going to always score. So I feel like it's just a Melbourne game, but it's just one of those things, like, if you see him do it again, then you go, okay, let's have a look.
I mean, O'Meara, that's his first triple figure score of the year.
Yeah.
He's had multiple, like his first 6 rounds of the year, 15, 23, 39, 50, 41, 48.
I think a lot of those were sub-affected.
I know they are, but that's a horrible run.
I know. But yeah, so just an interesting one. If there's a role change there, just have a look at that. Sam Swikowski had 106 points. Only the 2 CBAs. I've been banging on about when this guy gets CBAs, he scores 80.
Oh, this guy gives me the shit. I've had him in Shiva all year, and I was lamenting the fact that I haven't had a single triple figure score in my entire Shiva year in my forward line.
Yeah.
And he can't come and does this. He was probably best. He was probably best on ground, or at least close to it.
Yeah. He was setting up all those goals up forward, that sort of thing. He was just, I think he was a record, like, not a record, but like a huge amount of score involvements as well.
Shit, Swikowski.
So, again, and he did get CBAs, so I can still use the fact that when he gets CBAs, he scores well. But it wasn't to do with playing in the midfield at all this week. It was just a good forward performance, playing that kind of connector going into the forward line. The big kahuna kicked 3 goals, 103 points. I think I've already 2G4P'd him because he had 380s in a row, but I love this guy.
Just put him in the mix.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Give him a little bit of love.
And Heath Chapman we mentioned it before, but
Good
he's
to see
had
him back.
back-to-back good scores, 92 points, just showing some good signs. Just looks like a fantasy type, but there's just so many similar players back there.
He's just a backman in the Freo chip around, and that's a great thing if you can.
It's kind of like all those St Kilda defenders like last year as well. Like, they just
when Callum
score
Wilkie
well.
was scoring well.
Yeah, exactly. Onto the Suns versus Essendon game. The Bombers. Are they a top 4 team? I reckon they're about as much of a top 4 team as Port Adelaide are.
Yeah, I mean, it was, to be fair, it was a great game to watch. It was a really entertaining game of football. And it looked like Essendon might come back and steal it, and the Suns just steadied themselves, which was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people undervalue the Suns, especially at home as well. I think they've been okay there this
they're
year.
Undefeated there.
Yeah, there you go. So, it is a tricky matchup there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but Bodie Uland, I'm going to tip the cap, 89 points. He's too much of a lockdown defender, and he had that 13 marks in defence in this game. I think Langford was out, and there's not a dearth of marking forward options in their forward line. So.
And they're not a Fremantle where they're just chipping the ball around, so like Sam Collins isn't getting hundreds and things like that. Yeah. So he's not that type of player.
Yeah, so tip of the cap to Bodie Uland, but a really good sign. I think Kay's had him on field in Classic, and he was pretty happy with it. Mac Andrew, 84 points again, so I think that's...
How good?
Yeah, I think that's 3 in a row. 80 plus. No, it's definitely 2. But just good to see him stay in defence this week. Well, from a real football perspective, in the fantasy, you probably want him to go into the ruck a little bit more, but they probably cost themselves a game last week by putting him in the ruck.
If you are playing a cat league,
hell yeah.
You had this guy, whether it's marking or spoils, it's just come out of nowhere in terms of just being so effective in that position.
Yeah, definitely.
In the last 6 weeks, his rise has been sharp.
Yeah, 100%. Just so athletic. Can move like a midfielder, but for a big fella as well. And
I got onto him early in his career because I thought he'd be a really effective long-term ruck for them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's probably not a bad idea. But then again, they've got Moyle on the wings.
It's not going to happen now with Moyle.
It's
certainly not going to happen now. But the fact that he's not done that and he's still finding an effective position in the team.
Yeah,
I mean, props to Andrew.
I always just thought he'd be like that interceptor that just gets big 1 week, 40 the next, and he still might be that, but he's just putting in a consistent run at the moment. So he's definitely worth one looking at the moment. We mentioned Nick Hine before, but he just keeps getting it done, 94 points. And I honestly think he's just playing for his spot. I was like, when Ridley comes back, he moves off that halfback flank, he's done again. But, he's goes up to the wing, goes up forward. I think he's kicking goals the last few rounds as well. So
I keep thinking of, when when I see Nick Hind in my mind, I keep thinking about Mason Wood. And like when Mason Wood came over from North Melbourne to the Saints, like, you know, he just hadn't really ever played like a good run of games at the Kangaroos, and all of a sudden he kind of turned into a footballer. You're like, Mason
Well,
Wood?
it was like he was a key forward for so long, well, a quasi key forward for so long, and then they just chucked him on a wing and let him run like a taller wing, and he just ran. So.
And all of a sudden he became a really effective footballer. Like watching Nick Hind over the last couple of weeks, he is playing good football. He's got like an awesome turn of pace. You know, from that kind of wing to that half forward line, like he is really creating for them.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is a lot of discussion on like, you know, will he stay in the team? Why would you get rid of him when he's providing?
The only thing is like Dersma plays a very similar role to him, or at least like Heppel goes back and then Dersma goes to that wing type thing. So like Dersma, and as I said to Kays as a Bombers fan, do you think Dersma comes straight back in? He's like, yeah, he just offers something a bit different. Like he's got that more aerial game, more of a pure wingman as well. But like, but then that pushes Heppel back, or maybe pushes Heppel out of the side. I don't really know. But he's playing so well also. I don't know. Essendon like do have some players, like some competition, which is good for them, I think. Because like they got Parrish out as well. Setterfield come in. They got 3 players to come back in the next month.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like who goes out, who goes in type thing.
I mean, even if
they're not like for like.
Bombers fans will know more than us. I don't know. It just seems like he's been very effective the last few weeks.
Mentioned Heppel, 96 points. He's moved up to that wing. I'm just worried with Dersma. Like again, just there's a few players to come back. I'm just not sure how they all fit together. Like he's someone like I could probably get pretty cheap in a trade. Like if I was, this is the thing. Like I've got Jace Burgoyne, I've got Massimo. All these guys going to be mid only next year. Are they that valuable now for a team that's contending like me? Should I get someone like Heppel in, do a trade?
Yeah, are you
get
costing
like
yourself when you're going to lose all that position?
Yeah, and when I want to win this year, it's probably like my last chance. My team's probably getting on a bit. You know what I mean? Like, do I keep those guys and just have mid-only wingers next year?
Bring in the old guys. I love that shit.
Yeah. So is Heppel someone to target? Because I probably could get him for, you know, the price of like a Massimo D'Ambrosio type thing.
Oh, you'd easily get that trade through.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. But then again, like what's going to happen in 4 weeks' time? You know, Dersma comes back, can he go back to just being 50s and 60s as well? So
I suppose it just depends on what you're replacing in that D5 position. Like, is it worth it for you in that regard?
Yeah, it probably is at the moment. Anyway, Sam Durham, again, 92 points. He's on the bubble for 2G, 4P just because of that back-to-back 90-plus score. Again, Parrish is coming back. Setterfield's coming back. How's it going to affect him? Don't get too excited, but he's showing some class at the moment, that's for sure. The second gold members read, thank you to Christopher Burke, Kane Russell, Chris Clint. God, I can't even read tonight. Clint Westall, Harley Beachy, Ren Cameron, Obi Simmons, Jack Bidwell, Kim Dillon. Oh, not the Channel 9 news presenter, Kim Dillon, right?
That's KYM.
I was going to sacked on his birthday, Kim Dillon, infamous Adelaide story. But anyway, John Goatsky and Baxter Nucky, thank you, all of you, for your support. Again, we're a member-funded podcast, and you are the ones that keep us going. So thank you to those. Let's finish it off with some questions. I got an anonymous question in an email last night that didn't want their name read out. But what?
Do you think it's because they're trying to keep themselves a little bit more surreptitious with the rest of their own league?
Oh, 100%. That's like you said, my league listens to the podcast. Yeah. What would you do with Josh Ward, Ben Hobbs, Lockie Ash, Connor McDonald, and Will Powell? I can only keep 2 or 3 of them, but not sure. Should I trade them when they all have low value, or just hold on and hope contending this year? Contending this year makes it a difference, yeah.
The one piece of information we don't have there is how many you do keep.
That's
at the
always
end of the
important,
year. Because if it's like a tight 10 and you can really only, like he says, I can probably only keep 2 or 3, but man, like, if you're holding and hoping, how many of those guys are actually on field for you in those contending games? Like when you're playing finals, are you fielding any of them?
Yeah. And like also if you're contending, if you're trading in those players, just try not to get guys that are going to be retired next year. You know what I mean? As well. Like even if they might take a step back, like
squeeze an extra year or 2 out of them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, maybe don't go after a Steel Side Bottom who's very, you know, or a Travis Boak. Yeah. But see, Travis Boak could win your flag if he's listed as a forward as well. So that's probably not a bad option. And they'll play him to give him a send off at the end of the year and all that sort of stuff as well. So like maybe those are the guys that you trade a Josh Ward or a Lockie Ash for. Like I can't see Will Powell scoring that well this year with Sam Flanders in the back line. Like we already saw him dip off, and I don't see them dropping Sexton either after this as well. So he's someone you could probably get rid of.
Lockie Ash has had some moments this year. Probably of the 5 you've listed, he has had the highest fantasy moments, but I think he had like a sub-affected 15 there as well.
I think Hobbs has got high potential, so you probably want to hold on to him. But like
he's been a real disappointment from a fantasy perspective this year.
I feel like at Josh Ward, you can just get a winger, like a first round kind of draft pick caliber winger next year in the draft type thing, no matter where you've got to pick. You know what I mean? You could replace him pretty easily.
Does he have any keeper clout left, Josh Ward?
Oh, it depends on the depth of the league. Like, yeah, definitely. I think like he was just such a class talent as a youngster. He needs to get an inside role. I'm just not sure he's going to get that at Hawthorn. That's all. But he might get somewhere else. Like, yeah, I don't know. But
Anon, it's a really tricky one, right? I suppose
a lot of circumstances depend on your league.
If you've got any Hawks fans in the league, and maybe you could sell Ward or McDonald to them, and squeeze something out of it. If you're contending this year, I don't really get the impression that any of these 5 are going to help you. It just depends what the market is like in terms of being able to trade something for him.
Just don't do what I do and trade Daniel Rich in and he just retires at the end of the season.
Straight away.
Type thing. Anyway, Seabrack 10 is Toby Conway keeper worthy. Looked like he's got potential. Now, I don't expect you to listen to this every week, but Aaron Bryans was on 2 weeks ago. Gave us the tip that he is the number 1 ruckman from mid-season onwards.
I saw the TikTok.
Cool. But yeah, so I'd say yes, definitely keeper worthy because I don't think they're going to go back to the Reece Stanley well anymore, and I think they're going to persist with Conway. So
if you let me put something to you. Let's say you only kept 15.
Yep.
And you've got an established ruck.
Ooh, yeah. I'd be trading. Because
he's not worth the second. To bring 2 rucks into your next year is not worth it.
No, absolutely not. At John Ambo, Ned Long, is he more than just a depth player? I don't really know.
I don't have much of a read on him.
Yeah, nah, neither actually. I guess I think like with the injuries they've got at the moment, like maybe like I don't know. Like you look at their Collingwood midfield, right? Are we talking about the draftee? Is that right? There's not another Ned Long I'm getting mixed up with.
Have to be.
Yeah. So you look at the Collingwood midfield, Dacos firmly in there.
Yeah. Jack Crisp is having a run.
Yeah, Crisp. But then like we've got De Goey out, we've got Pendlebury out, we've got there's Tom Mitchell out as well. I don't think we see Pendlebury retire at the end of the year.
No.
I don't see I think it's probably more of a short-term play than anything. So,
but the stories are there of players that have made their way in and actually been effective. So maybe you just need to look in. You never know. He's the number 1 on your list, so pick him up and hope that something amazing happens.
Like he could be the next Jai Newcomb, sorry. But I don't know. Just in Collingwood's list, it's just hard to tell at the moment. I reckon we'll see him sometime soon though, so we'll have a better idea once we actually see him. But yeah, like I reckon if you've got a waiver or you're trying to pick him up, like it's probably worth it. Like
for sure.
Yeah, having that crack
Why
at
not?
it. So yeah,
what do you get to lose?
Yeah, have a punt at it. It's just hard to tell without, like I said, I've never actually seen him play. I'm just looking at his fantasy numbers. That's all. At Crisps for T, Bailey Humphrey and Mitch Owens. Is it time to delist?
Man, Mitch Owens has been such a disappointment this year.
Yeah,
I mean,
3rd year too, isn't it?
It's just like he looked like a great hope for the Saints.
Saints have been a disappointment.
Yeah.
Like they've all sucked. So yeah, I'd be holding, like just because what we've seen him be able to do when he's utilised correctly, when he gets like ruck time, midfield time, all that sort of stuff. Like he's a pretty special player, and Bailey Humphrey is the same. Like, what is he, 2nd-year player?
Yep.
In a really deep midfield. Like, give him time as well. Like you've just got to wait for him to try to overtake one of those guys. Like, I can see him overtaking a Touk Miller in 2-3 years' time. You know what I mean? And maybe he's the one who goes into that midfield as well. So, like, I can see that happening. So, it's just you got to bide your time with him. And if you can, bide your time with him.
Mitch Owens, 73.8 average last year from 22 games, 57 average this year. He just has not got it going.
Unfieldable in my league.
I think he scored well against Collingwood in round 2, and that is it.
Yeah, no, but I'm holding both. Like, if you can. Like you're going to.
If you've got the depth, or you've got the keeper positions, don't give up hope yet.
If it's
still
dynasty,
early,
keep him. John Newcomb, is John Newcomb just a 90s guy at best, or do you think he can build to 100 average eventually? He's still young.
Well, not many of those other Hawthorn mids have really come on this year. I mean, Warple's stood up in games.
Yeah.
Will Day looks the star.
Yeah.
But Newcomb can be the accumulator.
Yeah, I think he can. Like, you just got to like realize that. Look at every good midfielder through history. They have up and down years. You know what I mean? I guess because a lot of people saw what he was able to produce in patches last year. They wanted it more consistently this year. And it does feel like he's taken a little bit of a step back just given the way he started. But I think with, certain players like coming in like Will Day kind of eases the pressure off him a little bit as well, perhaps. I don't know. Like, I think he can be one of those players that does kind of hover between that kind of 90 to 100 like mark for a while. Get over 100 for a few seasons throughout his career. I think he gets around that 100 average at some stage.
I mean, he is only averaging 82 for the year, but there is something to be said about having a midfielder who you can rely on for an 80 to 100 score every week.
Yeah, 100%. Like they're great M4s, M5s.
You're not going to trade him for you're not trading a first rounder for him, but you need those players.
Yeah, no, he's fine. And I think he can get to 100 at some stage. Give him time, let Hawthorn become a better side, access to more footy, all that sort of stuff. Possess the ball more. I think he can get there. Matt W. Seems to be a new age of wingers starting to emerge as potential stars. This is actually what I was talking about before. He's got def mid Closey, def mid D'Ambrosio, def mid Burgoyne, mid forward Dempsey. Do you trade now before they're mid only next year and middling out as 75, 80 wingers, or hold hoping they break out further?
I think for me, there's a wider question at play here, and that is when you get to this time of the year, where end of round 12 we've just had. Are you already looking? Let's say you're not contending, you just don't see yourself in the mix for winning it this year. Is now the time to make your moves? Like, is strategically as a keeper league coach, are you trying to move on those players that may not be handy to you in the future, are going to clog up your list spaces, are going to lose their positional eligibility? Is now that time?
Yeah. Well, it's basically what I did with Crouch, like being in a dynasty-style league where I've won 2 of the last 3 flags. My team's aging, it's really old. And I had to move on, Crouch, get that first rounder in. And I kind of sacrificed contending, having a crack this year to kind of start to get ready for the future type thing as well. So these are the times you do make these things. Like, I actually think it's a good play. Like, for me, who's got 2 of these guys and I'm sitting 3rd on the ladder, there are struggling teams out there that would jump at players like this, I feel. Like, guys that are 20 years old, putting up 80s and 70s, 80s most weeks type thing. You can
sell the narrative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can pitch them a story.
Yeah, 100%. And especially if they're supporters of those clubs as well. Like, a few Hawks supporters out there, a few Port supporters out there as well. You might be able to get that deal. Like someone like Burgoyne as well. Like, I'm honestly worried. It's not that he doesn't have the ceiling. It's just his role, the scoring is going to fluctuate. We're already seeing it. 91 week, 50 the next. And that's what he's going to be as a winger. Like, you look at someone like on the other wing, Miles Bergman, who's in his 5th, 6th year in the system, still doing the same. Yeah, still doing the same type of thing as well. Like, that's what's going to happen to these kind of players. They're going to average you around 80 and it's fine. But it's going to be frustrating as hell because the week you need him to go big, or you just need 50 points to get you over the line and they score 48 type thing. Like,
you just sit there waiting for the score to go over, take a bloody
yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I would trade those guys if you could get something that's either going to help you win the flag this year, or something that's going to be better for the
Matty,
future.
if you're in the mix, hit the market.
Yeah, I reckon. Our first year keeper league has 3 rookies under 22 rule. We all know the A-level keepers in this range, but when considering this rule, who are the B-level keepers? They may need more time to develop as they aren't big names, so you could fly on the radar. Think your Harvey Gallagher's, your Will Graham.
Don't get him started again. He's moved on.
Well, he's already taken my answer here, but the one guy, I didn't research this at all, I'm sorry, but one guy that comes to mind for me immediately is Lockie Cowan at Carlton.
Yeah, I've seen your TikTok on this guy as well.
I reckon, again, underage gun, halfback flanker, could just slot into being the new Sam Doherty once he's kind of done as well. At the moment, they've got Mitch McGovern back there. They've got Sard back there. They've got Newman back there who's getting, he's 30 plus now, isn't he? He could be the next guy, and it's a fruitful half-back line. They all score pretty well. I reckon he could be the next guy back there who gets no kind of plaudits or no one really talks about him in that mould.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. I mean, I always like to look at the guys. Now, it's interesting to know what your league denotes as the rookie. You said under 22. I'm always keen on the guys that are, that maybe had a good first year that have dropped off and then could push again in that third year, because people forget about them. They go to the new flavors of the month, particularly in keeper, like moths drawn to a flame to those new guys.
Yeah.
But it's when coaches kind of drop their bundle and, they may put other players back in the mix. Nah, that player's in their second year, they've just dropped off the radar. That's when to make a little investment there.
Yeah. So,
you look at your Josh Wards this year, and maybe someone will get sick of him.
Yeah.
But he was so highly touted last year.
Yeah.
That maybe there's an opportunity there to get your hooks in.
No, I don't mind. Yeah, I don't mind that kind of play as well. The other one that's just coming to mind is Luke Nankervis from the Crows as well.
He's looked good.
Yeah, like just a halfback flank. And I reckon he does push up to the wing, but I think he kind of holds that back status as well. He's probably got that bit of fantasy game about him too.
I do like a keeper league with the rookie rules. Just mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, we keep one, and I kept Massimo D'Ambrosio, and it was dubbed the worst keeper selection of the season.
How's that panning out?
Not too bad. Yeah, there's a lot worse. There always is. What looks like bad on paper, there's always something worse out there. Anyways, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
We get to hear your dulcet tones on the Shiva Blast podcast, of course.
Do I get the first run or the second run, or you haven't decided yet?
Do you know what? It'll be a bit of random draw.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Just like any good league, there'll be a little bit of tinkering with making sure that... I'm
going to have to free up some space on the podcast schedule this week. I've got to listen to 2 podcasts now.
Mate, what's interesting is that, just... Everyone kind of sends their things into me. All I check is the first 10 seconds to make sure the audio's coming. I want to react to it when everyone else is hearing it for the first time.
I reckon the first 10 seconds of mine does give it away, but hopefully you didn't listen to it so closely.
I get a chuckle from just hearing what song people are doing and just knowing what's to come.
Yeah.
You see what are the tough notes here? How are they going to pull it off?
Yeah.
It's going to be well worth tuning into. So, search DT Shiva on Facebook or Shiva Blast, wherever you get your podcast, wherever you listen to the Keeper League podcast.
I'll try to remember to put a link in the description.
If you're liking what the coaches are doing, if you just respect the fact that people are putting themselves out on the limb, consider chucking a couple of dollars towards our cause, which is Fight M&D.
Who doesn't love an AFL fantasy related song? They always go off.
Exactly, mate. It's interesting to see the talents that people, hold to themselves for most of the year. And even the coaches that are a little bit tone deaf, sometimes they're the best songs going around. So we cannot wait.
Definitely. I'm really looking forward to it. Looking forward to that episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Shiva Blast. Make sure you go check out the podcast this week and listen to both and get around all the songs that are coming out. But anyway, where can people find you on Twitter and all that sort of stuff?
You can find me at Damon Adams on Twitter. I think I got in there early and got my actual name. But DT Shiva _ you can find me as the commissioner of DT Shiva, of course. And hey, if you're interested in getting around the biggest fantasy competition that this country has to offer, then just join us on Facebook or follow along on Twitter so you can get the alerts for when we will open up registrations for next year. I'm sure I'll be back to put that more into your skulls as it comes around.
What's super underrated is the Shiva Discord group.
Yeah.
Such an active, I've got one as well. It's way more active than mine because the community is just so much more active, I think. Everyone discussing players, trades, even things like, how you don't get any notification that a player's a sub?
Yeah.
You can just guarantee someone will post a screenshot of the subs. In the thing
handy,
pops up type thing.
Particularly given Twitter or X these days, gets lost in all the porn bots and I get very distracted by that anyway.
Absolutely.
And so the Shiva Blast Discord has been free of the porn
Touch
for a
wood.
little while. I can't say that about your Discord completely, but just to follow along with the teams and changes, there are some good natured coaches out there that just want to help out.
Yeah, 100%. And just good discussion, good banter. The match day threads are awesome because if you got no one, if you're just sitting at home watching the footy by yourself, you jump on the match day thread, it's like you're chatting footy with, your mates type thing. It's bloody awesome, you're at the pub kind of thing.
Get out there and shoot the shit.
Absolutely. Anyways, get around our stuff on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. TikTok.
You got to get around. There's nothing better than sliding up and like you just get your 30 seconds ahead and giving you a good player recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's not a lot of people doing fantasy stuff on there, so it's a good way to just interact with people and reach a new audience, really.
Yeah.
So, head out. There's a bunch of links at the bottom. The website's down there. Membership, if you want to sign up, I'll chuck a link to the Shiva Blast up there as well, so you can get that one. And I think that pretty much wraps it up for the week. Thanks once again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good to have a Monday frothy with you, mate.
Absolutely. Anytime. Take it easy, people.